I'm going to say something now that sounds, when you first hear it, somewhere between naive and monstrous. The Stoics believed that health, wealth, friendship, professional achievement, the safety of your children, and your own continued existence are all, in the technical philosophical sense, indifferent. Not unimportant, not things you shouldn't care about, not things you should fail to pursue or feel nothing when you lose them, but indifferent in a specific philosophical sense. The use of the word indifferent has been misinterpreted by every critic of Stoicism ever, and the meaning, once understood correctly, turns out to be one of the most practical and most liberating beliefs in the entire Stoic tradition. The misunderstanding runs something like this. Stoics say health is indifferent, therefore they are indifferent to health, therefore they don't try to stay healthy, care for the sick, or grieve when people die. Stoicism is a philosophy for people who have switched off their humanity in the name of some form of philosophical purity. Now, I can see the logic, but the critique is pointed at the wrong target. Today, we're going to go carefully through what the Stoics actually meant by preferred indifferent and discover that the concept is not about preaching emotional detachment. It's a map for holding the things that matter to you with enough wisdom so that they enhance your life rather than control it. Welcome back to the Stoic Mind Mechanic. My name's Tim Howell. In our last episode, we put together the complete Stoic daily practice. Today we're entering the next major phase of the series, a deep exploration of Stoic principles, the philosophical ideas that give the practice their foundation and their meaning. We're going to start with what I consider the most misunderstood concept in Stoic ethics, preferred indifference. It is, once you understand it, one of the most practically transformative. It changes the relationship to almost everything you care about, not by asking you to care less, but by asking you to care more wisely. So let's start with the original word in Greek itself. The word is formed from the negative prefix a and adiaphora, meaning the difference or distinction. So literally, adiaphora means things that make no difference. And the immediate question must be, makes no difference to what? The Stoic answer is specific and technical. It makes no difference to virtue and no difference to genuine eudaimonia, to the genuine flourishing. It doesn't mean no difference to anything. It doesn't mean no difference to your life. But it does mean no difference to the one thing that the Stoics identified as genuinely and unconditionally good, the quality of your character. Wealth doesn't make you virtuous. Health doesn't make you just. A prestigious position doesn't make you wise. These things are morally neutral in themselves. Their value depends entirely on what kind of person is holding them and what they do with them. If you recall the argument from my video on virtue, that genuine goodness must be unconditional and these external things fail that test. A wise person's wealth enables generosity. A foolish person's wealth enables harm. The wealth is not the variable here, the character of the person holding it is. But, and this is where the misinterpretation usually occurs, the Stoics didn't stop there. They didn't say, therefore external things are worthless, therefore you should be indifferent to them in the modern English sense of not caring. They introduced a crucial further distinction within the category of adiaphora, things that don't affect virtue. These are things worth pursuing, and there are things not worth pursuing. Things we have good natural reason to prefer, and they call these things preferred indifference. Progemina, adiaphora, the preference is real, but the goodness is conditional on how they are held, as these things are morally neutral. Health is a preferred indifferent. We've got excellent natural reasons to prefer health over illness. It accords with our nature as living, rational beings. Wealth is a preferred indifferent. We have natural reasons to prefer having sufficient resources over lacking them. Friendship, social connection, professional engagement, the continued lives of the people we love are all preferred indifference. And their opposites, illness, poverty, isolation, loss, are dispreferred indifference. things we have a natural reason to avoid. They're not genuine evils in the morally fundamental sense, but things we are quite right to work against. The Stoics aren't asking you to stop caring about your health, your loved ones, or your work. They're asking you to understand the precise nature of what those things are and what they are not. Let me make this concrete with a classification of the things that fill most human lives. So as I read through this table, notice both the items that belong in the expected categories and the ones that are surprising. Good health, categorized as a preferred indifferent. In practice, this means pursue it actively and sensibly. Losing it's genuinely bad in the ordinary sense, but it doesn't determine your virtue. Wealth or financial security, categorized as a preferred indifferent, but in practice, pursue it reasonably. Use it well when you have it, but don't stake your peace of mind on retaining it. Positive reputation, categorized as a preferred indifferent. In practice, it's worth caring about when it reflects genuine character, but it's not worth anxious management for its own sake. Close friendships are categorized as preferred indifference. In practice, they're deeply valuable. Cultivate them, but their loss, however painful, can't destroy the person of good character. Professional success is categorized as a preferred indifferent. In practice, worth pursuing with full effort, but hold the outcome lightly. Effort does not. Pleasure and comfort is categorized as a preferred indifferent, but in practice, not to be sought at the expense of virtue. It's fine to enjoy when they arrive without pursuing them as an end. Illness and poverty is categorized as a dispreferred indifferent. In practice, we work against them, avoid them, but don't fear them or let them govern your life or determine your peace of mind. Your own virtue or character. Now, this is categorized as the only genuine good. And in practice, this alone constitutes eudaimonia, or flourishing. Its development is the purpose of the philosophical life. What about vice and moral failure? Well, this is categorized as the only genuine evil, and in practice, it's the only thing that genuinely harms you by damaging the one thing that was ever truly yours. Notice what is and what isn't on the table. Friendship is a preferred indifferent, not a genuine good. That surprises some people. The Stoics aren't saying friendship is unimportant. They're saying that friendship can't, of itself, constitute your flourishing. A person of genuine character who's lost all their friends through circumstance or through illness or through the random cruelty of life has lost something genuinely valuable, but they've not lost their capacity for virtue. That still remains, and it's the only thing that the Stoic tradition identifies as genuinely and unconditionally theirs. Professional success. Notice that this preferred, not the object of indifference. The Stoics were not counselling professional passivity or deliberate underachievement. They counselled full, engaged, energetic pursuit of the preferred indifference, combined with the philosophical flexibility to hold the outcome of those lightly. So the most practically useful way to hold the concept of preferred indifference is through a single distinction: the difference between pursuing something and depending on it. Pursuing health means eating well, exercising, sleeping adequately, or seeking medical care when needed, and making sensible decisions about your physical well-being. Now, this is wisdom. The Stoics commended it. Depending on health means your peace of mind, your sense of self-worth, your capacity to function philosophically and emotionally. All of these are contingent on your physical health remaining as it currently is. So that a diagnosis, an injury, the ordinary decline of an aging body produces not grief, which is appropriate, but a shattering of the inner life, a collapse of the person because the foundation was always external rather than interior. The same distinction applies to every preferred indifferent. Pursue the career with full engagement. Don't depend on its success for your sense of worth. Invest in relationships with genuine care and generosity. Don't depend on their continuation for your capacity to function. Work toward financial security with practical intelligence, but don't depend on its achievement for your peace of mind. Epictetus illustrates this with characteristic directness in the Enchiridion, where on the question of how to hold a beloved person, he says, "With regard to whatever object gives you delight are useful or are deeply loved, remember to tell yourself that of what general nature they are, beginning from the most insignificant things. If, for example, you are fond of a specific ceramic cup, remind yourself that it's only ceramic cups in general which you are fond. Then, if it breaks, you'll not be disturbed. If you kiss your child or your wife, say that you only kiss things which are human, and thus you will not be disturbed if either of them dies." I want to pause on that passage because it's the one most likely to trigger the reaction that this is cold and inhuman. This is not how people actually love. The response requires careful analysis. Epictetus isn't instructing you to love less. He's distinguishing between love and anxious possession. The parent who loves the child with full warmth and genuine depth, but whose love is not secretly a desire that the child never die, that the parent can love more freely, more generously, more presently than the parent whose love is entangled with a terror of loss that prevents them from being fully there. The awareness of mortality and contingency is not the enemy of love. It's the precondition for the kind of love that doesn't consume the lover. So pursue preferred indifference with full effort and genuine care, but don't depend on them. Don't place your peace of mind in the category of outcomes that you can't fully control. This is a serious objection to the doctrine of preferred indifference that needs to be addressed head on, because if it's not answered, the whole framework becomes a sophisticated form of moral passivity. The common objection, thrown against the Stoic philosophy is that if poverty, illness and oppression are merely dispreferred indifference, things we should avoid but that don't constitute genuine evils, doesn't this mean that Stoicism has nothing serious to say about injustice? That the suffering of the poor or the oppressed is merely a minor inconvenience? Philosophically speaking, that the virtuous person can acknowledge without being moved to action? This objection is serious and mustn't be dismissed. It is addressed by the Stoics in full, not as a technical philosophical maneuver, but as a genuine moral concern. The Stoic answer to this objection has three parts. First, the doctrine says that external suffering doesn't constitute the genuine evil of moral corruption, but it absolutely recognizes that external suffering is bad in the ordinary sense. The Stoic claim is not that poverty is fine, it is that poverty can't, of itself, destroy the virtue of the person who experiences it. Now, those are very different claims. Secondly, that justice is one of the four cardinal virtues. The Stoic sage doesn't encounter injustice and shrug his shoulders. The Stoic sage encounters injustice and is called by their own philosophical commitments to respond with justice, which means actively working against it with full engagement using every available means. The preferred indifference doctrine tells you how to hold the outcomes of that work. It doesn't tell you that you have to withhold the work. Thirdly, the doctrine applies to your own relationship to external things, how you hold them for yourself. It's not a general claim about whether other people's suffering matters. Of course it matters. The Stoic cosmopolitan vision that all rational beings share a common nature and have equal claims on our moral concern is the philosophical foundation for a very robust account of our obligations to alleviate the suffering of others. Holding your own success lightly doesn't mean being indifferent to whether others succeed. It means bringing the full force of your character, unencumbered by self-serving anxiety about outcomes, to the work of making things better for everyone. So I want to arrive now at what I think is the most practically transformative consequence of the preferred indifference doctrine. the thing that changes not just how you think about external goods, but how you actually experience your life. The person who depends on external things for their well-being is in a permanently precarious position. The career they've built could collapse. The health they have maintained could fail. The relationship they've invested in could end. Every one of the preferred indifferents they've made the foundation of their inner life is, by definition, something the external world can take away. And the awareness of that vulnerability, held unconsciously, rarely examined and perpetually present, is one of the deepest sources of chronic anxiety in the modern world. The person who treats preferred indifferent correctly, who pursues them with full effort and genuine care, but doesn't depend on them, is in a genuinely different position. Not because they're indifferent to the outcomes, but because the inner life is not staked on outcomes that they can't guarantee. This produces something the Stoics call tranquility, or euthymia, which is not passivity or emotional flatness, but a stable, engaged, unanxious presence in the life you're actually living. The career is pursued with full commitment because the commitment is not poisoned by the fear of failure. The relationship is given fully because it's not guarded by the fear of loss. The work is done well because it doesn't need to succeed beyond its own quality to validate the person doing that work. Full engagement, light grip. That's what the preferred indifference doctrine makes possible. And it's the difference between a life lived in the service of your values and a life lived in the grip of your fears. Seneca captures this in a single line from the letters that I've returned to more than once. He says, "I shall be poor, but I am free. Wealthy, free. In office, free. In exile, free. Death, free." Free, not because circumstances can't change, but because the things the Stoics identified as genuinely theirs, character, reason, and capacity for virtue, circumstances can't touch. I want to be honest about something as we close. The preferred indifference doctrine is the Stoic teaching that people most often claim to accept, but rarely actually live. The intellectual proposition that wealth, health, and status are preferred indifference is easy enough to agree with in the abstract. The practice of genuinely treating them as such in the moment when you're at risk of losing them is a considerably harder proposition. So the gap between intellectual assent and the lived practice is exactly what the practices block that we've just completed is designed to close. The morning review prepares you for the day's preferred indifference before you're inside the emotional storm of having to pursue them. The dichotomy check identifies when you have shifted from pursuing to depending, and the evening journal reveals the pattern. Which preferred indifferent are you constantly over-investing in? Where does the anxiety live? What does its location tell you about what still needs work? Practices and the principles aren't separate. They're all part of the same project, the project of bringing your philosophical understanding and your lived experience into closer alignment. One conversation at a time, one choice at a time, and one morning review at a time. So your reflection for this episode: go and identify one preferred indifferent that you're currently treating as a genuine good, one external thing whose loss, if it happens, you believe would genuinely destroy your peace of mind. Now be honest with yourself and ask, what would actually remain if this were taken away? Not rhetorically, actually, what would still be yours? So this question, considered and answered seriously and honestly, is the beginning of a different relationship to the thing that you care about. Not a colder one, but a freer one. In our next episode, we're going to take on the concepts of living in accordance with nature, which is one of the central and most frequently misunderstood teachings of the Stoic school. What it actually means to live kata phusin, why the Stoics chose that formulation, and what it asks of a person trying to live well in the specific conditions of the 21st century. So please like and subscribe if this has been useful. It will help the channel reach those that might need it. Leave a comment below if anything I've said or covered today resonates with you. I'd love to hear from you. So in the meantime, keep calm, keep stoic, and I'll see you in the next one.